Welcome to an introduction to RS5000, a lab projects manual with examples that provide you with an introduction to the software used to program processors that use the Logix Engine. The previous series was called the Complete PLC Learn series. The manufacturer of this family of processors using the Logix Engine has chosen to call them programmable automation controllers instead of programmable logic controllers. This is produced by the PLC Professor, and this will be Volume 1. The materials were too extensive to put into one volume. It easily reached 300 pages very quickly, so we've broken it up into more than one volume. This is not a good starting place to learn programmable logic controllers. It assumes that you already understand basic programming and are upgrading to the Logix Engine and the Logix Engine's HCI, Human Controller Interface, Rslogix5000. We do not repeat the same concepts in this manual that we covered in the Complete PLC Learn series. The Complete PLC Learn series, it was based upon the least expensive Rslogix5000, or you could use the RS500 simulator, which was comprised of MicroStarter Lite, RSLinx Lite, and RS500 Emulate, which was all pro gratis from Rockwell Automation. And we have a video that you can watch that goes step by step to download the software, to load them on your computer, and to execute them to build an emulator so you can emulate a MicroLogix. Now with RSLogix5000, save the version 17 that is free for 90 days without any upload or download capabilities. Aside from that one instance, the possible hardware combinations that you might be using in software cover a huge range. Because of this challenge, when we do the lab projects in this manual, some of them will be with ControlLogix, some with CompactLogix, and some with different processors in CompactLogix. There's a 1768 CompactLogix and a 1769, and now there's a newer one that's commonly referred to as L1, L2, and L3. That is programmed starting with version 21 or Studio. We're going to stick to the pre-Studio versions, which would be 17 through 20. So most of the projects we'll do in 20, version 20. Now the graphical user interface of the presentation does change some between 17, 18, 19, and 20. But you will quickly catch on to the differences and they won't hinder you. Now anything that you can do with ControlLogix, you could probably do with CompactLogix, save a few things. And we won't be doing any projects specifically that could only be done with ControlLogix. But we will show the graphical user interface in RSLogix5000 configuring ControlLogix and CompactLogix, but primarily CompactLogix. So setting aside any differences in I/O part numbers, a 16-point digital output module serves the exact same functions in code, whether it is a 1769 backplane or a 1756 backplane. As far as the logic is concerned, it has no idea what was going on the backplane to get the data in and out of memory. With RSLogix500, very little changed over the years, whereas with RSLogix5000, it is in a constant state of improvement and dynamically changing presentation, meaning they are continually adding features that basically support new features in processors because of new and improved chipsets used in the newer processors. And the presentation of 5000 is also dynamically changing, meaning features in the graphics when you're working with the Logix Engine. We will do some labs in version 17 to accommodate those using the free version of 17, and some labs in version 20. We won't do any in 18 or 19. And resources permitting, we might do something in version 21 in a later volume, not this volume. Version 21 or Studio is a major shift in presentation and includes HMI development within one package. Without the fundamental knowledge from using Rslogix5000, you may find the shift from version to version a challenge, not to mention having to assimilate logic coding, which overshadows your learning experience with 5000 and the Logix Engine. What I mean by that is this. If you're trying to learn PLC programming, and 5000 in this one situation, you're in the wrong spot. You need to go back and learn 500 first. Learn PLCs through the simpler database of the 500 and then return to 5000. Being able to substitute I/O tags from the hardware that you have from the I/O will all by itself be daunting without previous experience with 500. Meaning that we will jump around much more between different types of I/O and different schemes in this process than we ever did in the 500 process. So we are not trying to do the same thing in this manual that we were doing in the 500 manual. In the 500 manual, we were teaching you the character, the personality of a programmable logic controller and logic. We are not doing that in this manual. So if you start getting lost, I would get a hold of the complete PLC Learn series manual from the www.plcprofessor.com website. Get the manual, watch the lectures, install the software to use the simulator, or build a hardware trainer. We have a video that shows you how to build a little hardware trainer using the 10-point Rslogix5000 and 6 toggle switches and a 24-volt DC power adapter. And then watch the lectures and then use the trainer or the simulator to do the labs in the manual while integrating the lab discussions from the playlist Basics, Advanced 1, or Advanced 2, because that is how the manual is broken up into those three sections. Now, that's talking about the 500 manual, not this manual. I'm just telling you where to start if you don't already know programmable logic controllers. 10 years ago, when I first, we'll say, wrote the 500 manual, I talked about technology being implemented into manufacturing processes at a rate much faster than the training was being implemented. 10 years later, today, if anything, the situation has grown much worse for a couple reasons. First, corporations do not want to support the long-term investment into technical staffing because of turnover. So if you don't already know this material, it's going to make it tough to get a job. If you're already in a job where you have some access to PLCs, that is absolutely perfect, because you can use that access as part of your training. Also, as corporations showed less and less loyalty to their employees, that resulted in less and less loyalty to the employers from the employees. Meaning, once an employee got trained, he was easily rustled away for another $1 or $2 an hour. And you certainly can't blame an individual for wanting to improve his financial situation. So corporations are between a rock and a hard place. If they spend the money to invest in your training and then you turn around and leave, it was a wasted investment. However, if all corporations did that, then it wouldn't be so much as a shift. So the companies that don't train people have to steal from companies that do train people. Unfortunately, that's put a choke on learning and training. Another problem is there are not enough younger people in the learn pipe to replace the retired and soon to retire people that do this type of work. Even at the phase in my career, and obviously I've been doing this a long time, I get phone calls almost every single day. I get absolutely get one email or more, 2 or 3 a day, emails a day, from recruiters wanting to place me someplace. One day I got 7 phone calls from 7 different recruiters for 7 different positions. I mean, it was ridiculous. I had to turn my cell phone off. So the demand for people to work with programmable logic controllers and controls, and PLCs is just one part of the whole picture. So welcome to an introduction to Rslogix5000 using step-by-step lab projects and examples. This is volume 1. What we will attempt to do in this video series is to go through the manual, just as you would go through the manual, and discuss doing the lab projects and what the results mean. Thank you for joining us. Why the Logix Engine? One of the key features of programming the ControlLogix, CompactLogix controllers is the freedom you have in creating your tag database. If you are unfamiliar with a tag database, you need to complete some of the earlier lab projects that we provided in the Complete PLC Learn training program for the RS500 platform with SLCs and MicroLogix controllers. Always keep in mind that everything that takes place within a controller program, regardless of the language, ladder logic diagrams, function block diagrams, structured text, or sequential function charts, takes place totally within the controller's RAM or memory. Now, in the past, with the original PLC, it was basically a single cylinder engine. And from 1968 to 1996, it was still a single cylinder engine. And it had one program, and within that one program, it had routines. So you could think of it as a single cylinder engine, if you like. One solitary cylinder, one program. So now we have the Logix engine, much more powerful. Now I realize this is a V8, there's only 8 cylinders, and with the Logix engine you can have up to 32 tasks, each task with 100 programs. So if we were going to do a true analogy, that would be a 3200 cylinder engine. However, I picked the most powerful V8 that people are familiar with to illustrate the quantum leap from a single cylinder engine to a big powerful V8. As we said, regardless of the language that you're using, everything really takes place totally within the controller's RAM or memory. And it's how that memory is divided up that makes it more or less powerful. Even inputs and outputs are memory locations. Input memory locations acquire their state from real-world field devices, and output memory locations yield their state to real-world field devices. When we are considering the controller's program, all data addressed in the logic is addressed at a memory location, at or to a memory location. And all of the actions result in changing the state of a memory location. The program does not read the input devices and control the output devices. The program reads locations in memory whose state was influenced by the input devices. The results of the logic change the state of memory locations, which are then, through another process, used to influence output devices. Regardless of the external source of the state of input memory locations or the external destination of the state of output memory locations, they are still internal memory locations for data on its way into the program or on its way out of the program. Currently, CompactLogix is more prevalent than ControlLogix. This is most likely the result of an economical choice and not preference of features and capabilities. For the ControlLogix on the 1756 backplane is untouchable in features and capabilities and far exceeds the requirements of most applications, save redundancy in large process control applications. Since the advent of motion with compact Logix with the 1768 processors, and now with the newer processors, L1, L2, and L3, the ones that are motion capable, you no longer have to use control Logix to do servo applications. The 1756 passive backplane is a world unto itself, and each device on a 1756 backplane is almost unlimited in capabilities, not just to expedite control, but to communicate with every other realm of the entire system. Okay, how to use this book. The first step is to determine what you're going to use for software. There has been a complimentary version 17 of 5000 downloadable from Rockwell Software, although it is time limited and it does not support upload and download to an actual controller, which means that you can go through the lab projects in this manual with that version, but you can't download and actually run them on a controller. But you still gain the experience of configuring processors, writing code, and because we show you the code in its final form, you can determine that you actually did complete the code generation. You may find it possible to step in someplace where they have some software and hardware and actually test your labs. Some of the lab steps that are in the online mode in this manual will either have to be done offline or skipped entirely. If you are using a registered license and you have hardware, you will have to decide whether you are going to toggle bits from the keyboard or acquire the materials necessary to assemble a little hardware trainer system, meaning a box with at least some switches on it to control inputs, because you can always look at the LEDs on the output modules to see the results. It also wouldn't hurt if you were able to obtain analog input and output modules or module. You could add a couple potentiometers, 0 to 10 volts DC, and a couple meters, 0 to 10 volts DC. And you could also exercise your analog programs. So if you have hardware to work with, assemble the demo, plug in your demo, go to the first section of this manual, and follow the instructions. If you get to the end of a section and you are satisfied with your comprehension, your retention, you can look back and say, yep, I understood everything I saw and I think I could do that again, then go on to the next section. If you are not comfortable with the results, redo the section until you feel comfortable. Nothing produces better results than experience and repetition. If you have purchased this manual without previous experience with PLCs or not having gone through the complete PLC Learn series with RS500, you may want to do the 500 training first. Always, when doing lab exercises, it doesn't hurt to read ahead a little to see clearly what you're going to do before you do it. If you are confused with the results, go back to the point in the manual where you felt in control and restart there, even if that means deleting your programs and starting fresh. Do not rush through any of the material in these manuals or any videos that you're watching. A warning, not all versions of RS5000 support each individual processor. For example, most of the existing processors are not supported in version 21 and higher. If you want to maximize your flexibility in the future, then you will want to get a license for version 21. You will want one of the newer processors, L1, L2, L3, or even an L75. Very expensive if you're just starting out. And I'm sure if you go and check one out, you're going to go, well, I guess I'm not doing version 21. You can learn everything you need to learn if all you had was version 17 and the least expensive compact Logix that you can buy online used. So you can go online and buy a power supply, a 1769 power supply, 1769 processor, some 1769 I/O modules, input, output, and analog. Build a little hardware trainer. When I say relatively inexpensive, I'm talking about in terms of what the potential income benefit is from learning this material. Not like going out and buying a video game processor and some video games and learn how to play shoot the dope. So when I say inexpensive, I mean in terms of what the financial benefits to you are in the future. So you might easily spend $500 to $1,000 for a Compact Logix hardware trainer, easily, and another $1,800 for the least expensive version of RS5000. So if you're this far in your learning process, then you should probably already have a job where you have some income and you can start setting some aside in order to learn this next section of your career. If you don't already have a job and you're reading this manual, but you do already have 500 background, in other words, you already know PLCs real well and you're a good programmer already, then there are jobs out there for you. You need to get one, get some money, and then upgrade yourself into 5000. So I realize it's different for everyone out there, and I'm sure I've skipped over somebody and say, well, that doesn't fit me at all. Well, we'll figure it out here. So, like I said, you can purchase a processor, a power supply, I/O modules online used, very reasonable. Now, if you're an experienced PLC programmer, then you will need to spend the funds to get the proper hardware, and if you are entry level without an income, start with the 500 platform, which you can learn very inexpensively. I don't know how much longer we're going to offer the electronic PDF for the 500 manual. We did that primarily to try to give anybody across the entire globe the opportunity to learn PLCs for the cost of that PDF, because everything else is free. Either way, get some experience and then jump into RS500. Now, how this book is organized. The lab projects are organized in the recommended order of completion. There will be at least 3 parallel sequences, so to speak. There'll be Compact Logix with an L35E, there'll be Compact Logix with an L45, and then Control Logix with the emphasis placed on the least expensive of the 3, and that's the Compact Logix. You might want to insert tabs at some of the sections for easier reference in the future when you need to refer back to them while on the shop floor. The section on configuring drivers between the programming software and the PLC is the procedure most often referenced on the job, configuring RSLinks. Second to RSLinks configuration is downloading, uploading, saving, and going online. And coming in a distant third place is navigating through the programs to find the logic and the data needed to troubleshoot the manufacturing system. The Complete PLC Learn series focused on RS500 and covering all of the instruction set, all 71 instructions that were supported with the 1000. But the Complete PAC Learn series, this series, is focused on continuing from the RS500 platform and transitioning into the Logix Engine and Rslogix5000. And once again, I say, if you are not already familiar with the instruction set available in 500, go back and complete that training first, then take up this manual with RS5000, because we're not going to cover the instruction set. Not every procedure in this manual is a lab exercise. Some are strictly procedural examples, only because they fall outside the scope of this manual as far as a lab exercise goes. They are included for your future reference when a similar challenge presents itself to you in the field. Availability of software and hardware is going to be your greatest challenge in learning 5000 in the Logix Engine. Now, when I consider the Logix Engine platform, I divide RS5000 into 3 categories: version 16 and earlier, version 17 through 20, and then the third category is version 21 and higher. Hardware I divide into 5 categories: controllers supported in version 16 and earlier. The second category of hardware is the 1769 Compact Logix. The next category is the 1768 compact Logix. And then the last category is control Logix and the newer compact Logix that are supported in version 21. If you're going to be buying software and hardware or looking for it, you need to go to the Rockwell Automation website, literature library, and from documents there determine the compatibility of the software and hardware that you are considering. This manual will have lab projects using compact Logix L35E, then the 1768 L45, so we could introduce motion and bridge modules, and then control Logix. The least that we're going to do labs with is control Logix, and we're only going to do one lab in volume 1. Now, with the exception of I/O, you can do most of the lab projects on any of the first 3 categories, and it is up to you to sort out I/O and memory locations associated with them when using this manual. So your prior experience with 500 or another PLC will give you the ability to figure out how to cross-reference the memory locations that we're addressing to the ones that you actually have to work with. Now, if that statement right there is confusing to you, you need to go back and do the other training first. Now, here's my recommendation. If you're going to use the free version 17 software from Rockwell Software, and I don't guarantee that it's going to be there forever, was the last time I looked. Get everything else ready to go before you download and start the clock ticking on the time limitation to use the software. Like I said, we can't warranty how much longer Rockwell Software will offer this free version. And the time limitation might be 60 days. It's either 60 or 90. I can't remember for sure. I'm not selling that software. I'm just telling you how to use it. If the time limitation is only 60 days, then you have 60 days to complete the course or buy the least expensive license to continue. Not all licenses support multiple languages, so all of them support ladder logic diagrams, but a more expensive license is required for functional block diagrams, structured text, and sequential function charts. So there are a couple labs in here that use function block diagrams, structured text, and sequential function charts that you won't be able to do unless you have a version that supports those languages. So once again, we thank you for joining us, and next we'll go to the first procedure in the book. Regarding the lab projects in Volume 1, during the introduction we did mention analog, motion, add-on instructions, and several other subjects. Some of these more advanced subjects won't be in the printed Volume 1. They're saved for Volume 2. However, they are part of the total Introduction to 5000.